Hi, Caleb with Brownells here, and in today's quick tip, I'm going to tell you where to save money on your next AR-15 build. So this video here is mainly focused on really core components. We did a video that was talking about, where we talked about the top 5 upgrades for your AR-15. This is kind of the opposite of that video. So that one we talked about some different things you can do to upgrade your gun. This one we're going to talk about where to save money on those core components so that you have more money to spend on those upgrades. So let's just jump right into it and talk about the first thing, probably the first thing you're going to look at when you're building your gun in a lot of cases, and that's going to be your actual receiver set. So when I say receiver set, I'm talking about the upper receiver here as well as the lower receiver here. Now, this is an area where you can actually save a good bit of money and still end up with a really, really good firearm. So there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, Gucci receiver sets out there. The more upgraded ones, or I say factory upgraded ones. But a standard mil-spec set will work just fine. Just make sure you're buying from a reputable manufacturer that makes mil-spec sets. I'm not gonna say you have to buy a Brownells one, but that's a really good place to get a good quality mil-spec set. And I think the word mil-spec turns a lot of people off, and we've done some myth busting on that, or smith busting, excuse me, on that recently. And what it basically comes down to is mil-spec isn't the lowest bidder. It's the lowest bidder that actually made the standard. So there's a lot of companies out there not making the standard, and a lot of those are actually more expensive than some of the mil-spec sets. So don't get fooled by the marketing. Just get a good receiver set, and you can get a good one at a low price, a relatively low price, I should say. Now, what to look for when you're actually purchasing a receiver set, and it's just that. Just make sure it's an actual mil-spec receiver set. That's all you really got to look for. If you want to get like a mil-spec plus, something a little bit upgraded from there, you can look at something like, this isn't a product specific video, but you can take a look at something like the Aero Precision. They basically took a mil-spec set, made it just a little bit better, added a little bit more material in some places, removed some in others, and actually made it really affordable. Now, here's the thing. We also done videos that talk about billet versus forged receiver sets. Go check out that video, because I'm not going to get too deep into detail there. But the point of this is, a lot of those kind of off-the-wall manufacturers, I'm not going to give any name brands here, but there's a lot of companies that make billet receiver sets that aren't really machined that great, but because they're billet and they look different, those companies are charging more than just standard forged receiver sets. So, moral of the story here is, if you want to save some money, get a forged receiver set, and you're still coming out with a really good product. All right, let's jump on to the next part that people typically overspend on, and that's going to be the barrel. So whenever you're purchasing your AR-15 barrel, you don't have to get some super duper match grade precision barrel. Most of us aren't going to be bench rest shooting with our AR-15, so we don't need those crazy barrels. You can get a really good barrel, a quote-unquote combat grade barrel, for less than $200. For what most of us are using it for, even if it's a home defense rifle, something you're going to be betting your life on, you still don't need to spend over $200 on a barrel. And that's at the time this video comes out. Who knows what the future is going to do to the AR-15 economy, but you know how that kind of fluctuates. But the point here is that there's a lot of really good quality manufacturers that make really good AR-15 barrels that don't break the bank. So chances are your gun's going to outshoot you anyway, so that's just another area you don't need to dump a bunch of money in. All right, let's kind of back it up here and take a look at the receiver extension, also known as your buffer tube. So there's a lot of different ones out there. I know some of you guys are out there, you've been playing Escape from Tarkov, so you have to get the advanced buffer tube. You don't have to do that in real life. This one right here is just a standard Brownells brand mil-spec buffer tube. It'll fit any mil-spec stock, don't need to worry about that. And it being a true mil-spec component, that doesn't just mean measurements, that means quality of material it's made out of. You're getting a really good buffer tube there. So that's another area people typically overspend. Honestly, those you can get for, you don't really need to spend more than $30 or $40 depending on which one you get. And you can actually get some that have the castle nut end plate, your buffer spring. You can get them with all that stuff in there for around $60, so you don't need to dump a ton of money into that there. Now, moving on to another area where you guys are overspending, that's going to be your bolt carrier group. All right, so bolt carrier group, of course, being the part that makes up the ball. I have one right here. I should just show you this one. This is your bolt carrier group. This is a standard nitride bolt carrier group. The bolt itself is magnetic particle inspected, which is real. That's something you kind of want to look for. You don't need to go super cheap on a bolt carrier group, but also you don't need to go super expensive on one either. Like, for example, both of these are Brownells brand bolt carrier groups. This particular one is the lightweight titanium nitride coated bolt carrier group. You don't need this in most cases unless you're trying to build like a super lightweight competition gun. The thing is, if you run that, you end up having to run an adjustable gas block to make sure everything's properly tuned, so you end up just dumping more money into your gun. Just get a standard bolt carrier group, and there's different materials you can get them made out of. You'll hear a lot of arguments about that, but just buy it from a reputable manufacturer. You know, the Brownells brand bolt carrier groups are really good. I use those in all of my guns. I know I'm a little bit biased maybe. You guys are like, you're just shilling for the brand you work for, whatever. That's not how it works anyway. But, you know, Aero Precision, Bravo Company, Sons of Liberty Gun Works, all those brands, they make really good bolt carrier groups, and you don't have to dump a ton of money into them. And you don't have to get those crazy coatings either. You can actually get a nitride bolt carrier group. Nitride coating now is actually a really affordable coating process, and a lot of your lower priced, not lower end, but lower priced bolt carrier groups come with the nitride coating because of that. And that's honestly one of the best coatings you can get in a bolt carrier group. Also a barrel. I didn't mention that in barrel coatings, but a nitride barrel is a really good choice for your firearm as well. And that's going to help keep the price down and the quality of the component up. All right, so let's say second to last thing I kind of want to talk about here is going to be lower parts kit. I'm not covering triggers because I covered that in the upgrade video. The trigger itself, you're probably going to be upgrading anyway. So go ahead and save a little bit on the lower parts kit, and lower parts kit is all the small parts that are in this lower receiver here. So save a little bit of money on your lower parts kit by getting one that doesn't come with the trigger. You can save roughly, you know, 15, 20 bucks, maybe sometimes more depending on the lower parts kit there. So go ahead and do yourself a favor. Don't get that extra part that you need, because if you get a lower parts kit that has a trigger and you're putting a new trigger in anyway, then you have an extra trigger laying around. Then you have to build a whole nother AR-15 because you have extra parts. I don't know. Maybe that's what you want to do. I don't know. So you do you from there, but that's another place you can save money. And again, a ton of manufacturers out there making good lower parts kits. The last thing I'm going to kind of touch on here, if you're running an optic, you don't need right away anyways, or ever, you know, depending on how you shoot, you don't need to get backup iron sights. That's just another area that a lot of us are probably, you know, depending on the type of shooting we're doing, we're never going to use them. And, you know, if it's just a planking gun, it's a range gun, you don't need them. Don't worry about it. Save a little bit of money there. You know, put that in towards, you know, getting a little bit better optic, trigger, you know, whatever. Put that money somewhere else, and you'll be glad you did. So, if there's anywhere, I know there's some there. I can get into a little bit more here, but I'm going to leave it at that. Those are kind of my top picks. So, if you have any questions or comments, you'd like to add something to it, feel free to leave that down below. And as always, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, not to mention that notification bell. We might do this on some other firearm platforms as well. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.